So now what happens is that Moses grows up and then he has to flee because of something that happens. Why did Moses leave Egypt? Good, all of you did. All right, so he kills the Egyptian, but not necessarily, that's not the reason why he leaves. First he kills the Egyptian, which is because the Egyptian he struck a Hebrew, right? But then what happened? So what happens is that, so he kills, one Hebrew person kills another Hebrew person. And he says, why are you doing that? Who do you think you are? Because are you better than any of you? Because we know you killed. So he's afraid now that the word is out. That's really the reason, is it? He did something, and then he finds out that he's been told that everybody knows what's happened to him. All right. So we see in the character, this is what I want you to pick up in the character of Moses in this event, is that Moses seems to have justice for the victims. So he kills the Egyptian who struck the Hebrew, and then he tries to stop two Hebrew men from fighting, and he cares for the woman who's drawn in the water when he flies to Midian. Because that next section is that he flees, and this is where he starts meeting at the well. There's these other characters who come and try to kind of harass the women who are at the well. And that was really ultimately what he ends up joining that family, right? So he seems to be, as a person, he seems to be intolerant of the abuse of the weak and by those who have power. So the reason why I bring this up is because at the very beginning, you can see that God has already formed within him. He's already prepared to do something. He's got the stuff for what he's going to be asked to do. We see a small segment of it here. You see what I mean? All right? Now, he seems to be intolerant of the abuse of the weak by those in power. He allies himself with the Hebrew people, even if he was brought up by the Egyptians. He doesn't seem to have the authority of the Israelites. Maybe he sees them as, the Egyptian trained, and it's not just with two men fighting. Okay, let's take this to another level for all of us. Here we have a story. You're reading this now. You're reading it from the head. You see Moses. You see Moses working for the weak and those who are defenseless and sticking up for them to a point where he then is driven away. And then he sticks up for the women at the well by these hooligans, And so we see that within him. And if that's preparing him now for something that he's going to be asked to do in the future. So now we have that in our head, right? Let's take that down to a meaning in my life. How are you going to relate that to your life now? Well, how you got to relate this? It can't just be a story we read. What does this mean for your life? Okay, good. So somebody who looks at this says, maybe I'm called as well for justice and liberty. How about something a little deeper? Okay, so let's say that's the level, is that we see the things he has to do. I might not be called just to take care of the weak or the powerless, even though that's all of our call. Let's take it down to a level for us now, for each one of us. Think about this now. You have all been given gifts and experiences. These experiences and gifts and these things that you're good at and these things that show traces of you in now are part of what God develops within you for what he wants you to do with your life. So I often would say that with the guys, and I'll give you an example in terms of priesthood. All right? When I was doing vocation work. One of the things I'd like to find out is this guy involved in the church? So he comes to me, he wants to be a priest. And he doesn't go to church. I'm like, well, maybe this doesn't quite fit, right? Because first thing you need to do is start going to church. And then we'll find out. But then I say, they say, well, I go to Mass every week with my family. I said, well, would you want to be a reader? No, I don't want to be a reader. So would you like to take communion to the sick? No, I don't care about the sick. I'm like, well, would you like to start with the faith formation, maybe teaching the little kids in faith formation? I hate kids. I don't want to even teach the faith. I'm thinking, okay, so maybe you don't have a calling because right? Because I should see within you a kernel that will flower into a real full vocation, right? Because the seeds of what God wants from you is in you now. But this is what happens with all of you, blaming all of you, because you cause a lot more work for me, is you think that you need to have it all before you start doing something. And I'm like, where does it leave God to give you the gifts and the training that you need in order to be who God wants you to be? So they're like, well, I don't speak well right now. I'm like, I'm not asking if you speak well now, but do you have the seeds of speaking well that we then can train and form, that you then can read? To believe it or not, I hated to speak in public at school. I was not really well known in school, so sometimes I graduated, I didn't know. I look at the yearbook, and my sister will tell me, do you remember him? Or I saw this person. I'm like, I don't even remember these people, because I was not a very outgoing person, and I didn't know a lot of the people there. They didn't know me, so I kind of was in the background, right? But, I believe that God gave me seeds because of it, I believe anyway, because of my love for Him, for knowledge of Him, and my desire to serve. I had no idea that I'd be able to even speak, because I remember like shutting down in fear because of a book report I had to do in class. And to think now that now I read in front of people. I don't just do that, but I even talk in front of people. But if I were to look at that little child in the 6th grade, I would see the fear in his eyes if he saw me, if he had a glimpse as to where I was going. But this is the reason why, is like, give God a chance to work in you and to develop in you. Because we see in Moses the seeds of, he already cares about people. He cares about the poor and the needy. And then God will continue. That's why things happen and gives him strength. And he says, I can't speak. I'm giving you a clue as to what's going to happen here, is that he says, I can't speak. I don't even speak well. What are you asking me? And yet he becomes the spokesman for God. And this comes right from St. Paul too, is that in your human weakness, God will shine, because it's God's strength that will shine. If you've got your act together in something right now, chances are you're just going to do that. And you probably don't even need God to help you do it, you think, right? Because you're so good at it. But try something that you're not that good at, but you're interested in, and see what God will do. What God will do amazing things. And, it's kind of like, sometimes I feel like, and I know this is going to be a little paternalistic, and I don't mean it that way, but I need it more by way of example. When you had kids, and you knew your son was afraid to do something, but you knew he would love it if he just tried it. And the amount of convincing it took you to just try it. I know you love it. And sometimes I feel like that's what I want. It's like, look, you are a good person. I see a good person. If you would just make a small commitment to bring communion to someone who's dying, it will change your life. It'll change your life with God. It'll change your life with your faith. You'll have something very important to pray for. It will make all the difference in your life if you just try it. And that's often what happens with people of faith. This is kind of what I think of with people of faith, is just try it. But this is the reason why I want you to say that when you read it now from the head and then the hands, you're seeing, oh, here's Moses. Yeah, and if you stay on the surface, I don't think you get down far enough to what the Bible can do to change your life, right? Because he did take care of the poor, and we should all take care of the poor. That's fine. But it's deeper than that, because, anyway. He was not doing anything special. God speaks while doing the ordinary things of the day. Note the wording. This is where I want to make sure that you can understand. There's an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a fire flaming out of a bush when the Lord saw him coming. What happens, the reason why I want to bring that up is, I don't know if you'd really see this unique thing. In the Old Testament, you often we'll see the connection between the angel of the Lord and then the Lord speaking. So is it the angel or is it the Lord? And you'll find in the Old Testament that it's both. So the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a fire flaming out of a bush. But we always say God spoke to him. So the reason why I bring that up is that if you're a very close reader, you would ask, is it the angel that spoke to him through the bush? So the messenger of God and God himself are very often one. I don't know if anybody thought that was a unique thing when they read it. Oh, good, we got one. All right. Because I didn't either. I didn't even know until I read the footnotes. So